There are some nights that change everything. For Elena, that night began with raised voices and a door slammed in her face. She stood in the rain, her belly heavy with child, her hands trembling as she touched the locked door behind her. Inside, her husband Daniel and his mother Catherine had made their choice. They no longer wanted her. Daniel's voice still echoed in her ears. "That baby is not mine. You have shamed this family." Catherine had laughed, cold and sharp as broken glass. "Get out. We owe you nothing." Elena had begged. She had cried. She had shown them the hospital papers, the dates, the proof. But pride is a poison, and they had drunk deeply. Now she stood alone on the street, rain soaking through her thin dress, her heart breaking with each breath. She had nowhere to go, no family, no money, no friends who would dare stand against Daniel's family. The neighborhood had always feared them. People whispered that Catherine controlled everyone with her sharp tongue and her husband's wealth. Elena stumbled forward, one hand on her belly, the other reaching for the cold brick wall to steady herself. The baby kicked. She whispered, "I will protect you, somehow." But the rain was relentless and her strength was fading. Her knees buckled, the world spun, and as the darkness pulled her down, she thought she heard footsteps approaching through the storm. When Elena opened her eyes, she was no longer on the wet street. Soft light glowed around her. She lay on a clean bed, warm blankets tucked around her body. For a moment she thought she had died. Then a voice spoke, calm and steady. "You're safe now." She turned her head. A man sat in a chair near the window, watching her with quiet eyes. He was older, perhaps 50, with silver hair and a face that had seen both sorrow and kindness. His clothes were simple but expensive. Everything about him was still, like deep water. "Who are you?" Elena whispered. "My name is Elias," he said. "I found you collapsed in the rain. You've been asleep for 2 days." 2 days? Elena's hand flew to her belly. "The baby." "Your child is fine," Elias said quickly. "I brought a doctor. She checked you both. You were exhausted and dehydrated, but you're recovering." Tears filled Elena's eyes. "Why did you help me?" Elias stood and walked to the window. Rain still fell outside, softer now. "Because no one should be left in the street to die," he said simply, "especially not someone carrying new life." Elena didn't know what to say. Strangers didn't do this. People didn't care. Yet here she was, alive because of a man she had never met. "Thank you," she whispered. Elias nodded. "Rest. We'll talk more when you're stronger." And he left the room, closing the door gently behind him. The house was unlike anything Elena had ever known. It was large, but not loud. Beautiful, but not cold. Every room felt lived in, warm, as if kindness itself had been woven into the walls. Elias did not treat her like a burden. He gave her a room with a view of the garden. He made sure she ate 3 meals a day. He never asked questions she wasn't ready to answer. Days passed. Elena grew stronger. Her belly grew rounder, and slowly, carefully, she began to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could survive this. One morning she found Elias in the kitchen making tea. "You don't have servants?" she asked, surprised. He smiled faintly. "I prefer quiet. I've had enough noise in my life." She sat down at the table. "Why are you really helping me?" Elias poured her tea, his movements slow and thoughtful. "I once knew someone who needed help and didn't get it," he said. "I was too young to do anything then, but I'm not young anymore." There was sadness in his voice, old and deep. Elena didn't push. She understood that some pain lived too deep for words. "I don't know how to repay you," she said softly. Elias looked at her, and for the first time she saw something flicker in his eyes. Recognition, memory, something she couldn't name. "You don't owe me anything," he said. "Just take care of that child." While Elena healed in Elias's home, a different storm was brewing across town. Daniel had returned to his life as if nothing had happened. He went to work, he smiled at his colleagues, he pretended Elena had never existed. But Catherine was restless. She paced the house like a caged animal, snapping at servants, criticizing everything. "Why do you look so worried, Mother?" Daniel asked one evening. "I'm not worried," Catherine said sharply. "I just want to make sure that woman doesn't come back and embarrass us." Daniel laughed. "She has nothing. No one will help her. She probably left town by now." But Catherine wasn't so sure. She had seen the look in Elena's eyes that night. Desperation, yes, but also something stronger. Determination. Catherine didn't like loose ends, so she made calls. She asked neighbors if they'd seen Elena. She sent people to search the shelters, the clinics, the cheap hotels. No one had seen her. It was as if Elena had vanished. Catherine should have felt relief. Instead, she felt uneasy. "Where did you go?" she muttered to herself, staring out the window into the dark. Somewhere in the city, hidden from their eyes, Elena was building a new life. And Catherine, without knowing it, had just made her first mistake. She had underestimated the will of a mother fighting for her child. Months passed like gentle rain. Elena's belly grew round and full. She moved slowly through Elias's home, her hands often resting on the life inside her. Elias never hovered, but he was always nearby. He made sure the doctor visited regularly. He bought baby clothes, a crib, soft blankets in pale yellow. "You didn't have to do this," Elena said one afternoon, holding a tiny pair of booties. Elias smiled. "Every child deserves to be welcomed into the world." Elena studied his face. There was something he wasn't saying. She had learned to read his silences. They were heavy with memory. "Elias," she said carefully, "did you ever have children?" His smile faded. He looked away, toward the window where sunlight poured in like liquid gold. "No," he said quietly, "but I once knew a father once, a long time ago." Elena waited. He didn't continue. She didn't push. Some doors opened only when they were ready. That night, as she lay in bed, Elena felt the baby kick strong and steady. She whispered to her child, "You will be loved. I promise you that. No matter what happens, you will know you are loved." Outside her window, the stars burned cold and bright, and somewhere in the darkness, Elias stood in his study, looking at an old photograph he kept hidden in his desk. A young woman with dark eyes, a smile that had once meant everything. He touched the frame gently, then put it away. Some ghosts never leave. They simply learn to live in the quiet spaces of your heart. The night Elena went into labor, the sky split open with thunder. Elias drove through the storm, his hands steady on the wheel, while Elena breathed through the pain in the back seat. "Almost there," he said calmly. "Hold on." The hospital lights were too bright. Nurses rushed forward. Elias stayed by her side until they took her into the delivery room. Then he waited. Hours passed. He sat in the hallway, his hands folded, his eyes closed. He had waited like this before, in another lifetime, in another hospital. That time he had been too late. This time he had made sure Elena had everything she needed, the best doctors, the safest care. When the cry of a newborn finally pierced the air, Elias stood. A nurse appeared, smiling. "It's a boy. Mother and baby are healthy." Relief flooded through him, so powerful it nearly brought him to his knees. "Can I see her?" "In a moment." When Elias finally entered the room, Elena looked up at him with exhausted, glowing eyes. In her arms, wrapped in a soft blanket, was a tiny baby with a head of dark hair. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for everything." Elias stepped closer. He looked down at the child, and something inside him cracked open. Memory, regret, love. He had failed someone once, but not this time. "What will you name him?" Elena smiled. "Samuel. It means God has heard." Elias nodded. "It's a strong name." And as he looked at the baby, he made a silent promise. This child would never know hunger, never know abandonment, never know the cruelty Elena had suffered. He would make sure of it. Daniel's life had begun to crack. It started small. A business deal fell through. A promotion he'd expected went to someone else. Then his car broke down 3 times in 1 month. Just bad luck, he told himself. But the cracks kept spreading. One afternoon, his boss called him into the office. "Daniel, we need to talk about your performance." Daniel froze. "What do you mean? I've been doing great." His boss sighed. "Your reports have been sloppy. You've missed 2 important meetings. Clients are complaining." "That's not true," Daniel said, but his voice shook. He knew it was true. He hadn't been sleeping. Every night he saw Elena's face in his dreams, rain-soaked and broken.
"I'm giving you 1 month to turn things around," his boss said, "or we'll have to let you go." Daniel left the office in a daze. When he got home, Catherine was waiting. "You look terrible," she said. "What happened?" He told her. Catherine's face went pale. "This is that woman's fault," she hissed. "She cursed us. I know it." "Don't be ridiculous," Daniel snapped. But deep down, he wondered, was it possible? Could guilt itself be a kind of curse? That night, lying in bed, Daniel whispered into the darkness, "Where are you, Elena? What happened to you?" He would never admit it, but part of him hoped she was alive. Part of him wanted to ask for forgiveness. But pride is a chain, and Daniel was still locked inside it. Elena's life had become something she'd never imagined. She woke each morning to the sound of Samuel's gentle breathing. Elias had given her everything: a home, security, peace. But more than that, he had given her dignity. He never made her feel small, never made her feel like she owed him. One afternoon, as she rocked Samuel in the nursery, Elias knocked softly on the door. "May I come in?" "Of course." He entered, his expression thoughtful. "Elena, I want to talk to you about the future." Her heart tightened. Was he going to ask her to leave? "I've been thinking," Elias continued. "Samuel will need stability, education, opportunities. I'd like to set up a trust fund for him, and I want to make sure you're taken care of too." Elena stared at him. "Elias, you've already done too much." "I haven't done enough," he said quietly. "I want to do this. Please, let me." Tears filled her eyes. "Why? Why are you so kind to us?" Elias looked at the baby, his face softening. "Because I failed someone once, someone I loved, and I've lived with that failure every day since." He paused. "I can't change the past, but I can make sure history doesn't repeat itself." Elena didn't fully understand, but she saw the pain in his eyes and knew it was real. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Elias nodded and left the room, and Elena held Samuel close, whispering, "You are so loved, little one, so very loved." Catherine's unease had grown into obsession. She couldn't stop thinking about Elena. Where had she gone? Was she alive? And if she was, what was she planning? One night, Catherine hired a private investigator. "Find her," she said. "I need to know where she is." The investigator was expensive, but discreet. He asked questions. He checked hospitals, shelters, police records. Days passed, then weeks. Finally, he returned. "I found something," he said. "A woman matching her description was admitted to a private hospital 6 months ago. She gave birth to a son." Catherine's blood ran cold. Where is she now? That's where it gets strange. The hospital records show the bills were paid in full by someone named Elias Thornwell. Catherine frowned. "Who is that?" The investigator handed her a folder. "He's a billionaire, very private, made his fortune in real estate and technology, lives quietly, avoids the press." Catherine stared at the photo of Elias. Why would a billionaire help her? "I don't know," the investigator said, "but they're living in his estate on the north side." Catherine's hands trembled. This changed everything. If Elena had a billionaire protecting her, she wasn't powerless anymore. She was dangerous. Catherine left the investigator and drove home, her mind racing. She needed to tell Daniel. They needed a plan, because the woman they had thrown away had somehow landed in the arms of one of the richest men in the city, and Catherine could feel the ground shifting beneath her feet. Daniel didn't believe it at first. "That's impossible," he said. "Elena doesn't know anyone like that. I'm telling you what the investigator found. She's living with Elias Thornwell. Do you know who that is?" Daniel's face went white. Everyone knew the name. Thornwell owned half the city. His wealth was legendary, his influence even more so. "Why would he help her?" Daniel whispered. "I don't know," Catherine said, "but we need to be careful. If she tells him what we did—" "She won't," Daniel interrupted. "She has no proof. We didn't break any laws." "Laws?" Catherine laughed bitterly. "You think laws matter to a man like Thornwell? He could destroy us with a phone call." Daniel sank into a chair. "What do we do?" Catherine thought for a long moment. "We do nothing yet. We watch. We wait. And if she makes a move, we'll be ready." But even as she said it, Catherine felt afraid. For the first time in her life, she wasn't in control. And somewhere across town, Elena was waking up to another peaceful morning, unaware that her past was searching for her, unaware that the storm was gathering again. But this time, she wasn't alone. This time, she had someone powerful standing beside her. And that changed everything. 2 years passed like water flowing over stone, slowly reshaping everything. Samuel grew into a bright, laughing child. Elena found work managing Elias's household, not because she had to, but because she wanted purpose. She had grown from the broken woman in the rain into someone strong and steady. Elias watched her transformation with quiet pride. He taught Samuel to read. He took them to museums and parks. He never overstepped, never demanded anything, but he was always there. One evening, as they sat in the garden watching Samuel chase butterflies, Elena finally asked the question that had lived in her heart for years. "Elias, tell me about her, the woman you loved." Elias was quiet for a long time. Then he spoke. "Her name was Maria. We were young. She got pregnant and her family threw her out, just like what happened to you." Elena's breath caught. "I wanted to help her," Elias continued, his voice heavy. "But I was poor then. I had nothing to offer. She went to a clinic alone. Something went wrong, and by the time I found her, it was too late." Tears rolled down his cheeks. "I built everything I have on that failure. Every dollar I earned, I thought, if only I'd had this then, if only I'd been able to save her." Elena reached over and took Elias's hand. "You saved me," she said softly. "You saved Samuel." Elias looked at her, and in his eyes, she saw gratitude mixed with sorrow. "Maybe," he whispered, "maybe that's why fate brought me to you." Daniel's world was crumbling. He had lost his job 6 months ago. Every interview ended in rejection. Bills piled up. Catherine's savings were running dry. Their once grand house felt like a tomb. "This is all her fault," Catherine hissed one night. "Elena cursed us, I know it." "Stop saying that," Daniel muttered. But he couldn't stop thinking about it either. Everything had fallen apart since that rainy night. One afternoon, desperate and broken, Daniel did something he swore he'd never do. He went looking for Elena. He drove to the north side, to the address the investigator had found. The estate was massive, surrounded by iron gates and manicured gardens. A guard stopped him at the entrance. "I need to see Elena," Daniel said. The guard looked him up and down with cold eyes. "No one by that name lives here." "Please," Daniel begged, "just tell her Daniel wants to talk." The guard spoke into his radio. Minutes passed. Then the guard turned back. "She doesn't want to see you. Leave now or I'll call the police." Shame burned through Daniel like acid. He drove home in silence, his hands shaking on the wheel. Catherine was waiting. "Well?" "She refused to see me," Daniel said. "Good," Catherine spat. "We don't need her forgiveness, we need to survive." But survival was getting harder, and deep down, both of them knew the truth. They had planted seeds of cruelty. Now they were harvesting the bitter fruit. Samuel's 3rd birthday arrived with sunshine and laughter. Elias had transformed the garden into a wonderland of balloons and streamers. Elena watched her son run through the grass, his joy pure and unguarded. "He's happy," Elias said, standing beside her. "You've given him a beautiful life," Elena replied. "We've given him a beautiful life," Elias corrected gently. Elena smiled. Over the years, they had become family, not through blood, but through choice, through shared meals and quiet evenings, through the 1,000 small kindnesses that build a home. That afternoon, as guests left and Samuel napped, Elias asked Elena to come to his study. "There's something I need to tell you," he said. Elena's heart quickened. Elias pulled out a thick envelope. "I've been thinking about the future, about what happens if something happens to me." "Don't talk like that," Elena said. "Please, listen." He handed her the envelope. "I've updated my will. You and Samuel are the primary beneficiaries. The house, the estate, the trust funds, everything goes to you both." Elena stared at him, speechless. "You've given me something I thought I'd lost forever. Purpose, family,
joy. This is how I want to say thank you." Tears streamed down Elena's face. "Elias, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll accept it. Say you'll take care of Samuel and live the life you both deserve." She nodded, unable to speak, and Elias smiled, relief washing over his weathered face. The past couldn't be changed, but the future could still be saved. Catherine's desperation had turned to poison. She couldn't accept that Elena was thriving while they suffered, so she made a plan, a terrible, foolish plan. She would go to the press. She would tell them that Elias Thornwell was harboring Daniel's wife, that he had stolen another man's family. She would twist the truth until it became a weapon. One evening, she contacted a journalist known for scandal stories. "I have information about Elias Thornwell," she said. The journalist was interested immediately. "What kind of information?" "He's keeping a woman and child at his estate. The child belongs to my son. She abandoned her family and seduced a billionaire." The journalist asked questions. Catherine answered with lies wrapped in half-truths. "Can you prove any of this?" the journalist asked finally. Catherine hesitated. "I have records, hospital documents, witness statements. Send them to me. If they check out, we'll run the story." Catherine hung up, her heart pounding with sick triumph. She didn't care about truth anymore. She only cared about hurting Elena, about dragging her down. But Catherine had made a fatal mistake. She had underestimated Elias Thornwell, and she had forgotten that men of power don't stay powerful by being careless. The story would never run, because before it could, Elias's lawyers would crush it, and Catherine's lies would become her own undoing. The wheel was turning. Justice was coming, and it wore the face of quiet inevitability.
Elias's assistant brought him the news over breakfast. "Sir, a journalist contacted our office. Someone's trying to spread false information about you and Mrs. Elena." Elias set down his coffee. "What kind of information?" The assistant explained Catherine's lies. Elias listened without expression. Then he said calmly, "Find out everything about who made these claims, names, addresses, history, and send our legal team to the journalist's office. Make it clear that printing unverified lies about private citizens will result in a lawsuit they can't afford." "Yes, sir." Within hours, the story was dead. The journalist apologized profusely. Catherine's name was flagged. But Elias didn't stop there. He had his investigators dig deeper into Daniel and Catherine's lives. What they found was damning. Financial fraud, tax evasion, bribery of city officials. Daniel's family had built their reputation on dirty money and corruption. Elias called Elena into his study. "I need to tell you something," he said. He explained what Catherine had tried to do. Elena's face went pale. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "This is my fault." "No," Elias said firmly. "This is their fault. They made their choices. Now they'll face the consequences." "What will you do?" Elena asked. Elias looked out the window. "I'll do what's right, not for revenge, but for justice. They've hurt too many people for too long." Elena nodded slowly. She felt no joy in their downfall, only sadness, because cruelty always destroyed the one who carried it. Always. The consequences came swiftly. Federal investigators arrived at Daniel's home one morning with warrants. Catherine screamed. Daniel stood frozen as they searched through files, computers, bank records. "What is this about?" Catherine demanded. "Financial crimes," an investigator said. "Fraud, tax evasion. We have evidence going back 15 years. Within a week, both Daniel and Catherine were arrested. The news spread through the city like wildfire. Their friends abandoned them. Their lawyers couldn't save them. The empire Catherine had built on manipulation and fear collapsed in days. In prison, Catherine finally understood. She had thrown away the one person who had truly loved her son. She had chosen pride over family, greed over kindness, and now she had nothing. Daniel sat in his cell, remembering Elena's face the night he threw her out. He had been so certain, so cruel. Now he would spend years paying for that certainty. One night, lying on his narrow bed, Daniel whispered into the darkness, "I'm sorry, Elena. I'm so sorry." But sorry couldn't change the past. Sorry couldn't undo the pain. Some mistakes are written in permanent ink, and Daniel would carry his until the day he died. Meanwhile, across town, Elena tucked Samuel into bed, kissed his forehead, and thanked God for the second chance she'd been given. Justice had come, not through her hand, but through the slow, inevitable turning of truth. 5 years had passed since that rainy night. Samuel was now 7 years old, bright and kind. Elena had completed a business degree with Elias's support. She ran a non-profit helping pregnant women in crisis. Elias had aged gracefully. His silver hair was whiter now, his steps a bit slower, but his eyes still held that quiet strength. One autumn evening, Elias called Elena into his study. He looked serious. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, "something I should have told you years ago." Elena sat down, her heart suddenly racing. Elias pulled out an old photograph, a young woman with dark eyes and a gentle smile. "This is Maria," he said. Elena studied the picture. Then her breath caught. The eyes, the shape of the face. "Elias," she whispered, "who was Maria to me?" Elias's voice shook. "She was your mother." The world stopped. Elena couldn't breathe. "What?" "Your mother and I were together before you were born. Her family threw her out when she got pregnant. I was too poor to help her. She went to a clinic. There were complications. She survived long enough to give birth to you, but she died 3 days later." Tears streamed down Elena's face. "You're my father?" "I didn't know," Elias said, his own tears falling. "Your grandparents took you. They never told me. I searched for years, and then that night in the rain when I found you." He stopped, overcome. "I saw her face in yours. At first I thought I was imagining it, but I had you tested. The DNA results came back 2 years ago." Elena couldn't speak. The man who had saved her was her father. The man who had given her everything had been searching for her all along. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" she finally asked. "Because I was afraid," Elias admitted. "Afraid you'd think I only helped you because of blood. But that's not true. I helped you because it was right. I loved you before I knew, and I love you now not as a debt to the past, but as the gift you are." Elena stood and walked to him. She wrapped her arms around the man who had saved her life twice, once by taking her in, and once by simply existing. "You gave me everything," she whispered. "You gave me love when I thought I'd lost it forever." They stood there, father and daughter, 2 broken pieces finally made whole. Outside, Samuel played in the garden, his laughter echoing through the trees. That night, Elena tucked him into bed. "Grandpa Elias says I can help plant roses tomorrow," Samuel said sleepily. "That sounds wonderful," Elena said. She kissed his forehead and watched him drift off to sleep. Then she went to the window and looked up at the stars. Justice had come, love had won, and the cruelty that had once destroyed her instead led her home, to family, to peace, to the father she never knew she had. Some stories begin in darkness, but if you keep walking, if you keep believing, sometimes you find that the darkness was only the beginning and the light was waiting all along.